Still white knuckled.
All right, I would like to call the Budget Committee to order. This is Saturday, February 11th, 2017. It is 11:50 a.m. All right, so first of all, we had two sets of minutes to approve. There was the minutes from the January 12th hearing, the actual hearing itself, and there was a set of minutes from the meeting afterwards. Did people have an opportunity to take a look at them, and are you ready to approve them? If so, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes as printed.
Is there a second? Made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the hearings of January 12th, both the hearing minutes and the meeting minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Aye. Abstain.
So 2 abstain. So it's 4-0-2.
Did we have meeting minutes from December still?
Nope, all of those, I'm trying to keep up with them, but all of those. All right, so then to get on to voting on any budget changes. The budget itself did not change, so that is moot. We did, however, have 2 warrant articles that did have changes made to them.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could I just offer a little commentary? I'd like to, when we talk about Articles 13 and 14 and being part of the conversation and the vote, and being on your side of the fence for a long time in this Budget Committee, I would like to assure you that there was no intention to pull a fast one when we changed the funding mechanism. We're just so concerned about needing to push the fire station project forward because of the need. Once we got that report, we figured, this is, you're absolutely correct, where Frank was correct, that we don't know if we're going to be able to even occupy that building much longer due to the fact that it doesn't pass many of the codes. It has several code violations. And we're trying to avoid what happened in Bow. We're trying to avoid what happened in several towns around, where it got to the point where the fire marshal had no choice but to threaten to close the building and give a certain finite amount of time, that we had to, to address the situation. There's no intention to trick the Budget Committee. We're sorry that, personally, that was done at the last minute, but it was an issue that we felt was necessary to try to accommodate your intention with the tax cap, try to accommodate moving this project forward. And the language on Article 14 was an attempt to satisfy your concerns about the tax relief. And the fact of the matter is that money going back into that fund cannot be used for anything but. We can't, by law. Frank is 100% correct. So we're genuinely trying to allay your concerns by striking the last language and try to make it a little more clear. That language going in there, it has to be used for that. We can't touch that.
So if I could, just comment on the last piece. What I wanted to see as a Budget Committee member was that statement would be that it will be used, like, next year. So if the town votes to approve that article, that if you were going to do a $100,000 overlay, you'd do a $134,000 overlay. That money was going to go back in the same year, vice go in there, and maybe some point in the future. And I know once it goes in, the dollars are commingled.
Dennis, it's not an issue. It's a moot point.
I understand you can't use it, but you don't have to do an overlay either.
But you
could choose to not offset out of the general fund every year from now on.
But that's not the overlay money we put. That's different. The amount of money that the board uses to offset tax is not called overlay. Overlay money is used in case of rebates and on tax bills. Overlay has to be done. Is that correct? An overlay amount has to be there. When the board sets the tax rate, that's when they decide what amount to use in unrestricted fund balance to offset the tax rate. So that's a moot point. I understand what you're saying. This wouldn't solve that problem. This is putting the money in the account so that when the board decides what amount will be used to offset the tax rate next September, that amount will be available. We can't just determine that that's going to be
Right.
used for tax. We can't do
But
that.
if you
Will
were-
that be
but-
additional amount?
Yeah, but if you were gonna do 50 grand, are you just still doing only 50 grand and using the 38 to offset, or is it gonna be 88 grand?
Well, we
That's
don't
really-
know. We have no idea until September.
So I think what's being said is the money will be used to offset taxes at some point in the future.
Right.
Maybe this fall, maybe next fall, maybe 5 years from now, but it will go back to offset taxes. It's going to depend on, when we get to tax setting in September, what it looks like.
See, the DRA, right, that's exactly correct. The Department of Revenue Administration sends all of our forms and figures down in September. At that point, and only at that point, can we work to determine how much money is going to be used to offset the tax rate. Because we have no clue until then. We have no clue on the revenues, we have no clue on, and the DRA doesn't let us do anything until September.
So that money's not available to be used for some kind of repair, to be
No.
used by unspent fund balance?
No,
Only tax relief?
only in that general fund, we cannot touch them.
Only for the selectmen's use.
Right,
So the selectmen can only use the unassigned fund balance to reduce taxes. In
Right.
September.
Okay.
Now, as you just saw and as being proposed, residents can approve articles to use the unassigned fund balance for anything you wish to do.
right.
So when you get to the end of the year and you have a $100,000 unassigned fund balance, you can choose to use zero of that.
That is correct.
And then the money goes into,
Stays right there.
so I don't know what that collection of money is officially called.
That's called unrestricted fund balance. What it is the town's surplus.
Right, so,
of
okay, so
funds.
that's what I was,
And all that can be used for is offsetting taxes, either by putting money against an appropriation
yep,
or by putting money against the tax
setting the tax rate.
bill when the DRA sets the rate in September. So this accomplishes that. That money will not be used for anything other than tax relief.
But it won't necessarily be used for tax relief in September.
No, and we can't do that anyway, Dennis. We have no, we can't even determine how much until September. DRA will not allow us to do that.
I guess what I'm struggling with in my head is, if you had 34,000 that was allocated for one thing, that the people now say, allow it to drop into the general fund, that's an extra 34,000 that wasn't appropriated for an expense. And you say you can't spend it,
Correct.
so why can't you write, the day the article passes, why couldn't the selectmen say, there's already, we're gonna add $34,000 to whatever that number is?
Because that'd be like an appropriation type of thing. If I'm
I'm not, I
if I'm
won't
hearing
belabor, I won't
you.
belabor the point for the rest.
Yeah, no, what
Seems
you
to-
want is going to be accomplished.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
That's, I agree.
Okay.
I think,
The
I think,
intent was always to use that money to reduce taxes this
Right.
fall.
It's a mechanism that we're probably on different.
And when we asked the attorney to write the article, she wrote it so that it, being a lawyer,
Legally.
not allowing us the flexibility not to use it for whatever reason, something came up.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't binding. But I know on YouTube, if you watch it, one of the selectmen's meetings, Selectman Perry joked about, how come we can't have a negative tax impact on the warrant article? And, you know, everyone laughed and we joked, and we said, well, I don't think you can show a negative
You
tax
can't.
impact.
I
no.
mean, we're under so
The
many
intent was
rules
always
with
there.
DRA and stuff. You have no idea.
And that's kind of a similar
So should we just
conversation.
reopen the vote on that one?
So,
I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
I just want to talk about, and I appreciate the fact with the fire issue, but why didn't someone come and talk to us? I got, and I just don't want to.
And you're
I got,
100%.
this is my deal. I work in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
The moving around of that, to me, took operational funds out of the chief's budget for something catastrophic happening to one of the pieces of equipment that is important to operations. Okay, I know the building is getting to the point that it's not even going to be operations, so it's going to affect operations. That's a lot of operations, right? Just kidding. But that being said, if that's what, why didn't someone come and say that to us?
And-
Because I'll be honest with you, I still have a hard time swallowing this.
And our apologies. That probably should have happened, and I was not available, and the mechanism of it, all I can do is apologize to you,
So
because
I-
you are correct.
I'm glad you brought that up, Bob, because I was going to say the exact same thing. And to tie it in with Article 12, that you're not even bringing up, and no one was fighting for Article 12, and Article 12 and 13 are the two that got switched. And the thing is, when that was made, and when that was done and presented to us, half the fire department was in that meeting.
Right.
We walked in here, someone should have walked in here. I appreciate the fact that someone's here today.
Right.
But I don't understand why Article 12, because that was the other article that switched.
Mhm.
No one made any fuss about it, and that's the one that, is as important. You lose a piece of machinery, you need some money. And
I
those are the two that
understand.
got switched.
And all I could tell you is that there was no intention to do that, and I'll be honest with you. And I'll take responsibility, maybe I should have. It happened quickly. We were trying to find a way to get this project moved. We were in concert with the chief, and we were speaking with the chief.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
And-
speak to that. Priority, 1 and 2, 13 was more of a priority than 12 right now.
Right.
So if it had a better chance of going through because of the zero impact, then that was...
This is the only reason we did it.
So,
And you were right
In
to a point that, yes, we changed it to give it a better chance to pass. Well, yes. Yes. I mean, okay, we're guilty. But we needed to pass.
So the moral of the story,
Story is-
communication, communication, communication.
And-
We needed to understand this process, and the night of the hearing, we had nothing.
Yeah.
And that was the frustration from this committee, trying to operate with no information.
And I completely understand your position, and I have no, and again, apologies, I will extend apologies from you.
Thank you. All right, so we do have 2 warrant articles. Warrant Article 13, which changed. It is now a sum, an additional $34,001 shall be spent from fire and municipal impact fee accounts for this purpose. It did change. Does anybody want to make a recommendation on Article 13?
I'll make a motion to approve Article 13.
So it's a motion to recommend Article
Recommend.
13. Okay, is there a second?
Can I second?
Yeah, absolutely. So the motion is made to approve, to recommend Article 13, which is the architectural and engineering fees for the new fire station. We heard the presentation. We heard an explanation of why the maintenance fee and this swapped in terms of how it was going to be funded by tax rate versus unexpended funds. Is there any other discussion?
Just have a question for the chief. You're telling me that 13 is more important than 12?
right now, yes.
Yeah, that's one.
And
I'm
it's-
asking you right now. so
Yeah,
that's what-
yeah,
okay,
no,
that's-
I guess if I can, so 13 is, 12 is an insurance policy.
Correct.
I don't have anything upcoming that we can foresee that our mechanic and the vendors we use to service, we have one truck that may down the road have some pump issues, but it's like an insurance policy. We know what the issues we have with the fire station are. We know that we've got to do something sooner than later. I don't expect that in the next 6 months to a year, the state fire marshal will put us in a predicament that other communities have been put in, but I also don't want it to come to that. So from a priority standpoint, if and I'll speak for the board, and Brent can correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody drops 60,000 and change in our lap, we're going forward with this versus putting it in a savings account for what could potentially happen.
Okay, thank you.
And I always have mutual aid if worse things to rely on.
Yeah, I get it. Yep.
If something happens with a building, I can't borrow a building.
And this was part of the discussion. And again, maybe I should have come to share some of that with you. And again, I'll take responsibility.
So Brent, something was interesting you said at the deliberative. In 1988, you started pushing for a new firehouse because it was needed.
Mhm.
30 years later, it's still the same story, and the building's lasted 30 years.
Yeah.
More. We're 1988, you had to have a new firehouse. Here we have 2017, still need a new firehouse. It almost sounds like the school.
One of my concerns is with this is, like when the school had had their long storied debate about what to do with the school buildings. My understanding, since I wasn't here at that time, there was a lot of community involvement in what the decision was going to be. And here, we're going to be handed a set of plans in a year and saying, this is what we're doing. I just feel like we're really cutting a lot of people out of that decision-making process, which is why I'm not comfortable
It would
with
still
it.
have to be approved.
Yeah,
All
but
they're
we're
gonna do-
spending
all they're gonna do-
$100,000 at the committee for a
Carrie?
possible no.
Carrie,
So-
I could be wrong, but I think at the time the original plans were made, we had citizens on that committee.
did.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was citizen involvement in those
We've had
original
citizen
plans.
involvement from 88 on.
Interesting. I was not aware that
That's
such
the
a.
problem.
Well, sometimes, no, seriously, you know, you bring up a good point then. Sometimes, the fire department's a little bit different because of the technical operation and the aspect of what they have to cover, how they have to cover, and how they deploy their resources. It's a little bit different than a school. And there are times where you have to have a professional come in and assist you in determining what kind of building, where to put it in. And it's not, you can take community input, and everybody wants a fire station near them, but we can't do that,
I
you know?
don't want the fire trucks picking my kids up in the middle of the night.
So it's a tad different, but the community input is important. Where we put it, and back in '88, there was a plan to build two smaller ones, one up at Liberty Way, one on Talent Road, Talent in Albuquerque, you know, a main station there and
Oh,
a
thank God.
substation, Talent in Albuquerque.
Well, and not to mention Albuquerque was not. a through
Albuquerque
road.
wasn't through yet, and that was
Town
the
has
problem, we couldn't get
changed.
down there.
I'm just thinking, I live right near that intersection.
Yeah.
My kid's sleeping through
I
the
think
night with an
the
issue.
chief has
So
another
I
comment.
just, a couple quick things. I will apologize for not having somebody here at your meeting after the hearing. It was my daughter's birthday, I was out of town for that purpose. The two deputies were actually at the hearing and didn't realize you had a meeting after, or they would have stayed for that and been able to speak to it. So I kind of knew that, it didn't click, so after, when you had nobody, I did watch the meeting and nobody was here, I'm like, oh man. They were here, they just, like today, everybody left not realizing. So I'll take the hit on that, and I apologize for that. To Kerry's point, there's been, the plans we have from 2004 and 2008 had community input. I want to say it was 2 years ago, Brent, 3 years ago, John was the chair. There was, the board looked to get activity from the community, and there was little to no interest. I'm not opposed to it, and I'd like to
Wish I knew.
reinvigorate that.
I would have volunteered.
Once, if this is approved and we move forward, I would love nothing more than to have some input from the community on, you know, because to me, that's the best way to educate and build support. So I am by no means, and I don't want to speak out of turn because I haven't had that conversation with the full board, but I think that's part of this next year's process is to go back and look. The technical stuff we're getting from the architectural and engineering firms. The community involvement is where the buy-in and the understanding
Right.
of the need.
So another question that came up as a result of this is, the plan is to review and update existing plans. How do those plans consider the future expansion of, say, a fire department? Will we need a new set of new plans if they decide to go with a complex? Or can the current plans be updated to include expansion for a?
They'll need a whole new.
So, I think the simple answer is obviously based on the feedback from today. That's something that I would expect that
Is there room
will
there?
add to, you know, the review is what can be done if
Right.
we want to add on. The plans were designed for future, you know, living space, bedroom space, that type of, for, you know, if and when the town goes to 24-hour coverage, chooses to take over the ambulance, so forth. That was kind of, to a degree, built in to a bigger picture by design of the building. The way it sits on the property as currently designed back in '08, I don't think, it, you know, because of the constraints of the corner, and it sits kind of parallel to the corner, if you will, that you could add on to either end. But certainly, if all it takes is moving that building 45 degrees, and now that's certainly something that we would be
So the
missing.
plans would be considering potential expansion for,
And also the original, which I was involved in the original, and why I hesitated in moving, when I'm saying public safety complex, the original plan, what we had thought of as incorporating the building and housing inspection services within the fire department, because they are more closely related to the work of the fire department, and they work together. So if you move those offices into fire department space and possibly cross-train. These are all thoughts that came out in thinking outside the box and doing some,
right,
cost-saving measures. If you're moving your inspection facilities, you're both doing one job, you both can consolidate your work in inspection, housing code, fire code, et cetera. And possibly you could cross-train people in there to be housing and building code inspection and fire and EMS personnel. So what you could develop for the town is increased resources at a minimal cost.
right.
And it's free up some room at the town hall and not having to incorporate a whole massive new set of plans because of a public safety complex, having to move an entire radio system in. The police have a whole different set of needs, jail cells, they have security needs that are totally different than the fire service needs. So we thought of inspection would be a lot easier to put some extra offices in there. People can make a one-stop shop by coming to the fire department. And that's what the thought process was for that building there. And I believe it might still, I don't mean to speak for you, Chief, but it might still be the
And
same.
these are some of, again, the changes from 2008 to now. The set of plans that were done in 2008 were with, again, the concept of 2 stations. So while if you look at this study, you'll see a 3-bay station. That's
Right.
what they're looking at. That was done for 2 reasons. One, they already had the set of plans. 2, from a square footage perspective, it was 9,800 versus the current 8,000, I believe we have. So it was as close a comparison for the price to renovate versus replace. Obviously, without a second station, we're not gaining enough space to house everything. We would need to add 2 bays on. So there's a slight revision to that.
Right.
But that's garage space. That's relatively inexpensive in the bigger picture of construction. So that's one change. Gear, again, was originally designed spread out along the walls, where it's now recommended it's in a separate room with lighting that's protected against UV because of UV breakdown. So things like that. Decontamination. There was no designated decontamination area in the design from '04 and '08. That is something that's key and becoming even more critical now. So we would need to reconfigure some of the space. Not saying we're going to 20,000 square feet, but try and stay within the general footprint and reconfigure space to meet current needs and industry standards.
So all of this is encompassed in the reason why looking at reviewing the previous plans and going forward, coming up with something that is going to be presented to the community.
And I think the biggest push behind the change, quite honestly, is we all know the voter goes in. We all do it. I'm guilty of it myself. You go in, you look at what the 2 last lines say, recommended or not. And again, given the priority of need, 13 is certainly our priority.
And this was the thrust.
And your support on the bottom there could make or break.
And it is important. It's important to us, and that's why we wanted to try to do something. And yes, we're a little bit late, but we apologize.
Well, we
If
have,
it come in the ninth inning, then at the end of the game.
yeah,
And to the whole, just from a public safety, I want to go on record. I'm not opposed to it. I've worked in communities with public safety complexes. It does work. And Chief O'Brien and I have a very, very good relationship, as do both agencies. So it would never be a, tit for tat or anything like that. But the priority, I think, is to get our biggest issue, that being the fire station, resolved. And I think that's the direction that the board is looking, and then, move forward.
And then part of this evaluation would be to decide, suggestions as to what to do with the existing facility? I would imagine that you'd completely move into the new one once opened, so then what to do with the,
Well, yeah, this is another discussion, because we don't know what we will be able to do with it.
okay.
Because it all would hinge on how much it would cost to upgrade it to meet the code.
Well, I'm suggesting knock it down and sell it, but that.
Well,
That's one of.
you know, there's certainly that's something, community input would be important.
Fire department training.
Yeah, one time.
Yeah.
So my question really is, would that be a part of the review, as to looking at, or would that be the next step? Once
That's the next step.
I think that's the next step.
Next
You know,
step, because there's so many unknown.
The horses out, the cart attached before we, let the cart
Yeah.
out and chase the horses.
And if anything, if you can just do
But
like
I
minor
think it
changes to
plays
it
into
and
it.
park vehicles in the thing.
Well, I don't know, as a voter, I'd be like, are we maintaining two? Are we
Like-
maintaining one? That could affect my decision, so it just.
I said, maybe like recreation school, if they had vehicles, they could make, it could be strictly a garage, if the fire marshal would let us, Certainly town garage space is at a premium, so.
Just don't salt and sand there.
Another
Chief,
shed.
is there plans in that to make sure that there's, when you're building a structure, obviously, to build out and even to leave some empty space for future, like you said, if we go 24 hours, there's space to build out. If there's another office, space to build, leave some dead space in there to add on, or are you just gonna go?
Not in the current plan.
Well, I would ask that that be considered.
And I totally agree with you.
Because
I-
it's something, when anytime we build municipal buildings, it doesn't matter where we are, it amazes me that you're building something, whether it's a school, a police department, a fire, you're there. You're already there. So the cost to build it and leave it dead
Right.
is pennies on the dollar, and then all of a sudden you get in and you go, oh my God, we're already over. And I would just hope that, I know we love to see things shiny and new and all these offices and great, but I would hope somewhere in there, there's some forethought, and again, the professionals, if we're going 24 hours, if the agency goes from 36 to 56, there's some thought in how that space is used and the fact that you're already there.
Right.
The cement is cheap, that you don't even have to just leave it open.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you're not putting a $3 million addition on a $2 million
Correct.
building.
I would think that'd be incorporated. Do you have a study like the police department does as far as needs of the community, like going forward, like in 5 years, 10 years?
To my brain, you would probably know, we've never done an MRI type.
Not an
study.
MRI
Well-
type of study.
Well, if you consider the new additions going in, and so some of the roads, it's understandable that there would be increased needs.
Right, yeah.
All right, so there is a motion on the table to recommend Article 13 after the changes today at deliberative session.
Well, I appreciate this discussion, because I feel like we're making a more knowledgeable vote than we were before. So, thank you for coming, thank you
No,
for
we've been
being-
knowledgeable with what information we had.
Well, with I believe there's more information on the table to make
No.
a
Yes,
correct.
better
Valid
choice.
point.
And again,
No, another knowledgeable decision.
and again, sorry to be delayed on that.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending Article 13, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, so the motion passes
Thank you
6-0-0.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And the
attending.
next article,
Really easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
don't
mean,
bite.
really.
Trust
We
me,
even,
it wasn't
normally
good.
on Thursdays, we shower too. It's the most amazing
Yeah, but
thing. You
today's
guys can come
Saturday.
sit.
No, I know, like I said, it was
Yeah.
just kind of an oversight, and
Yeah.
again.
we do
you know, I'm a
appreciate
family
the discussion and
Yeah.
today. It does help very much.
It does.
So Article 14, the appropriation, apparently we have the option of not providing a recommendation at all, or revising our recommendation. So I'm open to what people want.
When is this one, the paramedic?
This is the non-lapsing appropriation, the $37,600 that will go back into the general fund and will be used for tax relief, as the discussion earlier indicated.
Currently is not recommended, right?
Right, it's currently not recommended, so we could either choose to take our recommendation off completely and provide none, apparently from the discussion at deliberative, or we can choose to revise our recommendation to something different.
And my concern with it was the wording and not, I guess, fully understanding what that fund was used for. I was under the impression that that money could then eventually be used for, unexpended fund balance. So,
Pool.
Yeah, so I didn't want it to go into and then be, well, we could have used it, but we've decided we're gonna use it for something else.
No.
My concerns have been answered. I'm actually willing to vote in favor of it. So I don't know how everybody else.
All right. Is there
Or
a
we
rec-
can remove it. Either way, it's fine.
Is
with me.
there a is there a motion to recommend the warrant Article 14 then?
I'll make the recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on Article 14? Hearing none, all those in favor of recommending Article 14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes. It's recommended 600. All right, those are the only items that I have from deliberative session that we have the opportunity to make changes on. Any other input from the committee members?
No, can I just ask clarification though from Brent on, when Frank was showing a slide, and I wrote my notes on the yellow piece of paper, he took it away from me.
Yeah,
But he showed the chart of 16, 17, he talks about the tax cap. And the difference was like $227,000, so to me, it looked like on that chart that we exceeded the tax cap for next year's budget by $56,000.
If all the warrant articles pass, so that was the selectmen's, because they are approving, for example, the equipment
Right.
fund.
But even still, that number is in flux.
And that was my
because-
understanding, that with warrant articles, it can exceed the tax cap.
It can. Yeah, with warrant articles, what they're proposing
Yeah.
can
Not from
exceed.
the budget.
Not from the
us,
budget
not from
committee.
us.
But
We-
they
Not
can,
from
they
the
can.
budget committee.
They could send a
They got
budget
$5
that's.
million worth of
Yep.
warrant
Exactly.
articles.
Yeah.
That was my understanding of the
And
tax
this-
cap.
And I'm sorry, I vote, like you said, I'm the one that said no, and for a whole mess of logistical reasons, and I still say at some point, it almost renders all the work you do useless, because.
It does, and
Go watch go watch the extended meeting where we tried
Yeah.
to get $30,000 out of the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
and
took
I
us an
mean.
hour and a half.
Like I got up and I said, I spent, 9 or 11 years on the Budget Committee, and I know what we did. And what this basically does is render the Budget Committee's work moot. And I said,
Or limited.
nothing should happen anywhere near that. And I said, I'm totally, like I said, I'm still totally against the tax cap. I think the town is not going to be served well with it. It's finding out, you found out this year, how difficult it is because, and even like you said, you may really feel that there are issues that need to be addressed. And you have to vote no on because to satisfy that tax cap. And that's not fair to you. That's not fair to
You
the
end up-
Budget Committee. That's not fair. You are expected to present, like we have for years, the Budget Committee presented a budget that they felt was good for the town and was necessary to meet the needs of the town. You won't be able to do that. And I think that's removing, and Chris didn't agree with me last year, but what it's doing is removing your ability to present an adequate budget. And I think will not serve the town well. I'm telling you, I predict that the town will rue the day that they.
because you'll see more and more warrant articles not supported by the Budget Committee, because we can't support them.
You can't. And, the only thing I was thinking is, and I know the selectmen put the wording on it, but if it gets to the point, there's certainly nothing wrong with putting on Budget Committee not recommended because of tax cap. So it takes that, at least the onus away from you guys that you may have wanted to, but you couldn't because of the tax cap. I would like to see that wording in personally. Budget Committee not recommended by the Budget Committee because of the tax cap.
Well, I
Not
know-
because you didn't.
I know definitely out of meetings that the chair made it very clear that going forward, we couldn't recommend it because of that simple reason.
Correct, and that was eloquent, very eloquently put.
And I'll tell you, the other thing that I think becomes an issue is, you don't know what to do on the budget till you see the warrant articles.
Right.
And if you get the budget in September, and when we start, and you don't get your warrant articles till December,
Right.
we had one of those, we gotta find $60,000 somewhere,
Well, and look what happens with your road maintenance articles. You get a winter that all of a sudden starts in February, and we're on a default budget, and then we ended up having to buy salt at the end of last year, right, that we didn't expect to buy. You go to deliberative session, and what you're doing is having to override it, you have no choice to override it and have the people override the tax cap, which is their right, and if they want to do that, that's okay.
And I'm surprised that didn't come up either, because didn't we cut salt and we're gonna put it back in if we had like a bad winter up to the deliberative?
We talked about it, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, so
Obviously, they have enough
the
salt
other
and
piece
sand.
to the
No, your
chief's
salt
point
is
for
pretty-
overriding, even if they override it, I don't think we can approve it.
We just.
No, you can't.
I'm just saying, so
But
now you're
it's
gonna
not
get,
that
now
they're
you're gonna get a
approving, Dennis.
negative budget committee
This was my whole
recommendation.
point. The people, the average person, like for years, I look, even when I go off the budget committee, I look at what the budget committee says. I know what the work the budget committee does. That's how I usually vote, because there's a reason that the budget committee didn't recommend that. And now I'm looking at that saying, it's not gonna work because this is not the reason they voted no. And, you know, I want to vote yes, but
And bonds are
people
excluded.
won't know that. People just will not know that.
Bonds are excluded from the tax cap, correct? In terms of the calculation?
They're not.
Jeez.
Everything
Louise.
is in
All warrant
there.
articles, and that's
I'm
one of
gonna
the
need a
things I
bunch of
spoke to
crayons next
Frank
year.
Byron.
so you get a fire
Spoke to
department, but
Frank
you can't have a
Byron.
budget.
All right,
Just
hold on.
him and I having a conversation, so the Board of Selectmen has not had this conversation, but I told Frank, I said, you know, the Board of Selectmen, the Budget Committee really need to take a look at this state law and see if there's a way that maybe it could be changed. Because I do believe that the citizens thought that this tax cap was going to apply only to the operating budget.
Right.
Not the, so the, you know, the Budget Committee would put together an operating budget that meets the tax cap, and then you have these other articles, these are other add-ons.
It didn't fit the tax cap, move it out
And
and
get
make
it
it
out
a
of the
warrant.
tax cap. But at least you know the operating budget isn't gonna increase more than $175,000, you know, year over year. And I don't know what kind of, I don't know, we'd all have to have that discussion, and then I'm not sure what kind of resistance you'd get up in Concord. But the only good thing going for us is that we're one of maybe just a few municipalities that have a tax cap.
Well, we're always a guinea pig. All right, if there's nothing else to come before us.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we are done. Thank you very much, folks.
Stay safe.
Thank you again.